Hey everyone, happy Friday. Hope you have a good one. We're going to get officially started in a couple minutes, but we were just talking about how AI has taken over everything, which is probably the most trite white guys on a podcast subject in the history of the world, but I don't care because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But about like right now, so far with AI taking over a whole lot of roles, I'm still seeing a lot of the limitations. Like, for example, AI is still giving me a lot of like incorrect info. Like, for example, they say, oh, like this thing works, like this product works with this. Yes, you can actually do that. And then they didn't, the services they glean the information from, it's just like, well, this specific product does this thing, but the other one doesn't. I asked about the other one, and you conflated it with the first one in that sense. You can still see how
But
it screws up.
is that like Chat GBT that's limited to 2021, or is that like Find.com, which is like Chat GBT with internet access?
Yeah,
Because they'll give you different answers, right? Like
that
Chat
is
GBT.
find on the GPT-4 like the expert level thingy.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And so sometimes like you can still see it, but also like, and it also gave me nonsense because I was trying to get it to optimize some like YouTube title, and I was saying about like something about like is trading Bitcoin illegal, or this guy got arrested. It's like, I'm sorry, I won't do any of that stuff. I'm like, dude, it's this. I'm interviewing this dude who just got out of prison. Like, can you just give me a title? So I just had to say like, fine, like let's say risky, and it said something like risky instead, and then I just put it and just changed the word to illegal at the end
Yeah.
product. Oh,
Yeah, that's a little bit annoying, but yeah. Yeah, I think ChatGPT 4 is a lot better at skirting around its limitations. Like if you go to ChatGPT 3.5 and you say tell me a joke about men, tell me a joke about women,
yeah.
it'll give you some wonky responses. But if you do it on ChatGPT 4, it'll just give you really boring joke answers. Like why did the latter not want to go to the party because it would be stepped all over or something like that. Like the humor is really bad, but it works better within its like limitations and restrictions. What I'm more interested in is like Meta's AI, which is apparently like no restrictions, and you can ask it like anything. Like I saw some predictions from like I don't know if it was Bard or Meta's Llama, but it was like AI thinks that we will be cyborgs by 2088. So like fully integrated.
I mean, 2080, that's a long time from now. I think it could happen a lot sooner. Like, I think that
Yeah.
there's a certain extent of where we're already sort of integrated with technology. I mean, think about the class difference of person who doesn't have a smart device, like a smartphone or whatever, versus someone who does. It's like a different creature almost. It's like one person can do this, the other person can only do that. It's just like this person just only knows what's up here, and this other one has
Yeah.
Wikipedia. It's like it's just
Yeah, you have access to infinite knowledge. Yeah.
yeah. And then now just with like some basic AI prompt stuff, the thing is like a lot different, and all you really have to do is just have like a little like neurally embedded thing where you can, instead of typing out your questions, you just think them, and then you just
Neuralink.
yeah. I mean, and it's not even super pie in the sky at this point. It's just like, yeah, that's like a couple years from now. It's like we're really close to that.
But the concern is like, what if it also like, Elon activates his army of bots to do whatever he needs to be done? Like, get rid of all the bots on Twitter, turn everyone else into bots. Like,
Yeah, it's like, yeah, if you want to be able to go to the bathroom, pay $8. It's like, oh no, no, you give them too much power. You
yeah,
need to be
yeah, that would be
Twitter
scary.
verified. You need to be Twitter verified to access independent thoughts. No.
Yeah, yeah, and he removed all the legacy verifications. Like, savage.
Yeah, some guy I know just was talking about Juan Galt is what he goes by on Twitter. He's talking about how he changed his profile picture and that like
Oh
de-verified
yeah,
him.
it'll take it away. Yeah,
It
yeah.
like briefly de-verified him, and then he noticed his like reach went like really far down in that time. I'm like, damn. So
Interesting.
I might actually get verified at some point now. I was like waiting for it because it just I wasn't convinced it was worth it yet. I was waiting for him to get rid of all like the bugs and stuff. And now if it is true that there's a reach difference, because like yesterday I did some
I'm
like
pretty
Lightning
sure it
Network.
actually says like right on it. It's like you'll get like priority visibility and the feeds and all that stuff. I mean, he just released a new thing where you can pay to be a verified organization, but it's $1,000 a month.
It's a lot.
Like it literally doesn't make any sense.
Was that just to like screw the New York Times? I mean,
I guess it's just if you want a gold or a gray check, it's $1,000 a month, and it honestly doesn't even really have any interesting differences. Like it all seems superfluous. It's like you will have elevated tweet limits.
mm-hmm.
I mean, all right, I guess like you already get that with Twitter Blue. I don't know.
Yeah, the whole reach thing does make it worthwhile though, because like I don't have 10,000 followers yet. I did some random tweet about the Lightning Network, which obviously is always a little bit of an engagement farming technique whenever I tweet about Lightning. But it's like 116 likes right now or something. I was like, oh yeah, I get okay reach when I want to. But what if I could get like 8 times that? I'm like, man, I'd pay for that. I'd pay $8 for that.
Yeah, and then people are farming it. You know, they just be the first one to comment on every Elon status, and then if you have Twitter Blue, you're higher up in the replies. You know, and play the game of trying to farm as much attention and reach as you can, right?
I'm sure there's a lot of people who have written scripts and bots and stuff to do that too. It's just anytime Elon says this, and then just like have a list of things that can probably apply to most things that he's going to tweet. Be like, we're definitely grateful to have you in charge of things because the crazy way the world's going or something. No, that'll apply to anything he says. And just whoop, because right away it's up at the top and a bunch of sycophants will be liking it. And, you know.
And then add a couple Doge emojis or something.
Yeah, or you can just say, hey, when are you bringing back the Doge logo? Even if it's completely irrelevant to the tweet, it still kind of makes it look authentic.
Yeah. Just like we launched a new spaceship for SpaceX. Hey, when's the Doge logo coming back?
Yeah, makes sense. All right, let's roll the official intro and then get into the newsy stories. 3, 2, 1, boom. Hey, good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown number 112. We're already 112 into these things. I'm joined by the one and only Scott C. Business, a.k.a. Scott Cunningham, a.k.a. number 1 ham. How's it going, man?
It's good. How many times have I been on here now? Like 5 or 6?
A lot more than that, I think. So okay, I think I promised a long time ago when I started doing the subscriber NFT things, I think I promised that I would, people who are on at least 10 times, I'd make them a special unique like one of one type NFT thing. And so far, I know at least one other person, it may be 2, has gotten there, like the super regular badge. And I was going to be like, man, I'm going to have to really shell out for a designer to make a unique thing. But then I'm like, oh,
Midjourney.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I could come up with some creative stuff and just be like, look, make a little thing that does this. Does Midjourney do anything like animated, like a GIF type thing?
No, but there's another AI for that. It's called
this is why
My Heritage. It's called My Heritage, I believe, is the thing, and the original purpose of My Heritage Deep Nostalgia is to turn like an old photo of like a dead relative and make it into like a living photo, so that I don't know, like you can remember them better or like whatever. I tested it today. Crazy realistic, really, really interesting. It's like partial deep faking technology onto an image to turn it into like a moving image. But then you could do the same thing with like, you could turn like any image into like a GIF, basically using that. If it's like of like a person to some degree.
Interesting. Yeah, I might just have to settle for the regular old Midjourney stuff. But I was thinking because like I have always had like artistic tendencies, but I've never really focus too much on developing them. I mean, I played a lot of music back in the day, but as far as like the actual skills to draw stuff, and so this is like the perfect thing for me because I have the most trippy, weird brain anyway. Like I can come up with ideas. It's just that turning them into something that looks cool is something different. So,
Hey, the artist of the 21st century is just a guy in a text prompt.
yeah, well, that's it. Like, I think that
Like,
honestly, that is also the artist of every century is the same artist. It's just the difference is back then he did this a lot, and then instead of like thousands and thousands of hours doing like this kind of stuff, you had a couple dozen hours figuring out like how to get the prompts to spit out what you want, and then
and it is an art. Like I know it's a science to create the perfect prompt for Midjourney. You should just type in, like, just search up on Google, like the most complicated prompt for Midjourney. It's literally looks like code. Like you can do every possible like little adjustment. You have like the lighting, make it like this, semicolon, the artistic style, semicolon, the palette of colors, semicolon, and then you write out every single possible thing that you want to be in this image. You can basically have it create exactly what you want if you can do the right thing. So the easy way to get around that, by the way, is you just go on ChatGPT and you say, write me a prompt for Midjourney that will generate this image, and then it'll write you like a very, very long prompt that will get you the exact image that you want, which is crazy. And you can also cue it to re-prompt. You could be like, and if I'm missing something, ask me what you need for the correct prompt, and then I will adjust it as needed. And then it'll re-prompt you, and then you can have
and
that.
it's just like my knowledge of coding, of any kind of coding, is basically limited to like it's like 20%, which is just enough to kind of recognize what parameters are. I'd be able to like take completed code and then change a couple of parameters. I can't do do any of it on my own, but like, so I could just say,
well, I mean,
make the prompt for this image, and then I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna switch this to that to that, and then just feed it to Midjourney, and there you go.
Well, and the beautiful thing is, like, even for actual code, you could say, I don't know how to code. Give me the code with instructions as to how to implement the code. And then you try to implement it, and you're like, oh, when trying to implement the code that you just gave me, I got this error, and then it'll spit back a new code to deal with that error. So, like, it's still very, very intuitive as long as you can just, like, generally... If you're not completely helpless interacting with the AI and you have like a very general understanding of like technology, I think most people can fiddle around with it and just kind of follow the instructions, and it's pretty crazy where it can take you.
Yeah, it is kind of insane. It's going to be very interesting to see all this stuff, and because we're in this incredible age of innovation, also sort of at the same time as we're in an age of the old guard trying to crunch down on that, which kind of brings us to our first thing about Coinbase, right? So Coinbase responds to the SEC Wells notice. I don't know if you had the chance to look at the video. There's nothing specific.
Yeah, I watched the first like 5 minutes ish.
Yeah, it's not nothing specific in there that's like super compelling, other than they basically the TLDW is Coinbase has always tried to they decided to operate in the U.S. since the beginning for a reason. They've always tried to be compliant. They do not sell securities, they said. When they went public, the SEC approved them to go public, along with the way they've been doing business, of course. And then now the SEC...
They've sold some pretty like
sketchy
altcoins,
well, listen,
you know?
Listen. yes, Sheeb. I mean, if you got Sheeb on there, that's a problem. But so they're making a very good point here, though, that the SEC basically allowed them to do business, endorsed the way they do business almost by letting them, do a public offering. And then now is trying to serve them with the Wells notice about like you've been selling unregistered securities, all this kind of stuff. And they're basically saying like, look, we're giving you one last chance. So we're going to chat with you, and see if we can work things out. But if you don't want to do that, we're going to sue you. We're going to litigate right now. And of course, the other thing they've been talking about is leaving the U.S. They already got was it Bermuda or something, license or something like that. So they're already ready to go offshore, but they're just like, look, first, we're going to talk to you guys. Second, we're going to sue the crap out of you. Third, if that doesn't go our way, we're just gone. You know?
Yeah, they're going to get all of the like innovation to leave the US, and then the US is going to launch a CBDC, and it's going to be so restrictive and no one's going to be able to buy crypto with it. Like, it's not going to make any sense if they really keep pushing on all this stuff. I mean, Coinbase isn't that great. I mean, they even like helped back BitClout when it was getting started, and I was just like, oh, that's not going to be a good association. The Winklevoss twins and Coinbase invested in BitClout when it was getting started. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's crazy that the SEC is like doing all this stuff all at once. I mean, there's so many bombshells all happening all at the same time right now. I mean, like, all these people are getting fired from like major news networks. Like, all these things are all coming down all at the same time. Like, in March, Binance US was, getting flack from the SEC. I don't know exactly how that's going, but they were saying Binance.us is operating unregistered securities is operating like and selling unregistered securities from the SEC, and that was like early March.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it seems like it's all happening at the same time. I don't know what's going on, but like,
and Voyager. Do you remember the Voyager bankruptcy? Binance.us was going to buy them, and now they backed out because of U.S. regulators. So it's getting gnarly. I think we hit some spot where the powers that be got, I wouldn't say scared or whatever. It's just like, it's like you having a party over and your house is a mess. You haven't done shit. And then at some point, it's just like an hour to go, and all of a sudden you're in cleaning mode, right? You're just, oh shit, I gotta get stuff going. That kind of, it feels like they put off doing anything about crypto, and now crypto is about to just be everything, and they're just, because like Gensler, when you hear him talk when he was, an MIT professor about, crypto stuff, he understands crypto quite well as far as, and he said almost everything is not a security. And he talked about decentralization of this. Like, he knows his stuff pretty well. And then all of a sudden, these last few years, it used to be like, well, EOS, you did a giant, obviously, securities offering. Like, we're just going to hit you with a slap on the wrist. And like, oh, this person, that person. And then they start hitting library, and then they start hitting everything. And through a very aggressive tone where they're not trying, as I've said thousands of times on the show, I'm sure, they're not trying to allege which criteria make assets a security. They're not trying to allege which ones are securities. They're just trying to get all these exchanges to register as securities exchanges for selling illegal securities, of which they can't tell which ones actually are securities. They're in this really weird angle. I think it is like the current, I would say, U.S. Democratic Party ecosystem of all like administration, all that is, there's a lot of pressure on them to do something about crypto and like restrain it. And I think that they're intentionally trying to just like compress it. And I don't think they care too much if a lot of it goes overseas. I do think that a lot of people in the US, not just like regular people and business people, but also the opposing political party to a much lesser extent, is a little bit more concerned about, chasing a lot of business outside and having like China and places like that get all the business. So it's a little crazy times we're in there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure where we're headed, but I mean, it definitely seems like the SEC wants to go after everyone. So, I mean, it's good that the guy from Tornado Cash is free now, which I guess could be a segue into the next thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, let me throw that thing around. Here we go. So, Alexey Pertsev said, Sorry, I was AFK for a while. What did I miss? Poor dude. So he was arrested in August, and he was held in the Netherlands without being charged. All that time, there were a series of hearings during that time, but he basically was held the entire time. And he recently, like the last couple of weeks, got released. It wasn't this last week. It was a couple of weeks ago. I did an interview with Eleanor Blanc of Crypto Canal, who's been one of the bigger advocates in the Netherlands for him. And it was like a week after that interview talking about the case and stuff that he actually got out. So if you want to know a little bit more about that case, I would look at that interview. It just has a lot more. But yeah, basically he's out. Now it might become more clear what he's being charged with. At least now he can start working on a defense and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, unless there's some things I don't know about that no one knows about except him and the government, it seems like they're going after him just for being the figurehead developer of this open source protocol that then some people ran the smart contract and use it to, launder money or whatever. So that would be, if they go after him for that would be a nasty precedent.
Yeah, I mean, creating decentralized tools is illegal, I guess. It seems like the last 6 months has been the time to go after everyone legally for things that they cannot prove or are not actually illegal, and just hold people without actually charging them. And that seems to be happening to lots of people lately. Without getting too political, I mean, they're going after Trump. I mean, that's a little bit more legit, but they just let Andrew Tate go. And that was after like 6 months of holding him like for nothing. I mean, that was Romania, but it seems like it's happening all over the place now. Like all these people are getting arrested. They're getting let go. They can't actually really prove that they've done anything wrong. Very, very weird precedents being set for all this stuff lately.
Yeah. And I really, obviously I try to be as reasonable as I can with all this and not as conspiratorial as I'd probably like to be, but at the same time, So for example, what Eleanor was talking about with the Pertsev case was she saw it as a very Dutch thing, as in in the Netherlands they don't have a First Amendment, they don't have free speech, and so they don't have this code of speech kind of thing that happened with the after the encryption wars of I forget when that was, when basic like SSL and all that kind of stuff was like illegal, it was like criminal in the US. So they don't have that, and it just seemed like an not open and shut, but like a very standard like money laundering case that he's going after money laundering, and not this whole OFAC sanction pressure from North Korean stuff like that, like not like all that stuff that I'm reading into it. She didn't seem to be reading that into that. Andrew Tate is another one that I think it could very well not be connected, because I mean, I don't know the man very well at all, right? I'm not what I'd call a fan. I'm not really a hater either. He just is what he's, some dude out there. There's a lot of weird stuff he does with girls, from my understanding, and it could just be that he's big enough of a loudmouth that people looked into him, they saw some sketchy shit, and they decided to go after him. And then I guess we'll see. I mean, that could be unrelated.
Well, I mean, they let him go after 6 months with no charges, right? But, yeah. I mean, I'm not really a fan either. I'm not I'm just more so on the side of don't arrest people and hold them indefinitely without charges, right? But yeah, it just seems like there's a lot of this starting to happen, and I won't be surprised if this starts happening more. I expect something similar is going to happen here in Canada with our elections. They're going to say our conservative leader was associated with the Freedom Convoy and thus is a terrorist and should not be allowed to run for prime minister. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised when any of this stuff happens, because it seems like they're trying to do the same thing in the US right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it seems like everything is happening all at once. It's very weird, a mix of politics and crypto. There's just a lot of legal smackdowns happening all around, and I don't know if it's connected or if it's all just it all just seems to be bubbling up at the same time, but it is very coincidental at the very least.
Yeah, my thinking is it's just a natural outgrowth of just like a backlash to whatever happened. And the one thing that first of all the developing world powers, right, the US and Western Europe and Canada and Australia basically, they do kind of do a lot of things together. There's a lot of coordination on a lot of things, but also, so there's a combination between that and the whole, Rona regime of the last couple of years. It's a thing that hit the whole world. The whole world's governments, for the most part, reacted in the same way, and then now you're having like the backlashes to that all happening. So I think that because of that one world event, I think that it caused a lot of these otherwise like disparate kind of events to sync up a little bit more, where you had, of course, governments were going to do overreach, and then of course there's going to be a backlash, and of course they're going to crack down on their political opponents. It just happened to sync up. This would have happened like France is going to pop off 5 years later than everyone else, but like nope, it's all syncing up because of this one thing, just like made it all happen. It's a little rough. But speaking of backlash and stuff. So Senator Warren / Marshall delay reintroducing crypto bill due to lack of sponsors. The latest version of the bill text, which has not been publicly released, includes the same language opponents originally found troubling, according to documents obtained by Blockworks. So I don't know if you heard about this crypto bill, but basically it would make everyone, including like anyone who runs a node, have to do like KYC. Basically, like it was just an awful, just piece of garbage of a bill. And the way it works, you need to, in order to just introduce a bill for a vote, you need enough sponsors, like co-sponsors of the bill. And apparently, Warren and Marshall have, I guess, delayed introducing this bill because they didn't have enough other people to sign off on even putting it forward for a vote, which in my opinion is a very good sign. It's not a good enough sign, but it's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely good to see that there is very little support for something like that, because that's extremely concerning. And yeah, I mean, hopefully more and more people are kind of waking up to see like that they're trying to really make everything centralized, and it's all going to be bad if any of this stuff goes through. I mean, you're just gonna have people like trying to get out of this stuff and using more VPNs, more ways to like obfuscate themselves, getting out of the US, doing things outside of the US. Like none of it is going to help. Plus, I mean, before I sort of took my little hiatus off of content creation, I was also working on, one of the big things I was working on was Bitcoin versus legacy systems for energy use. But one of the other ones was Bitcoin versus cash for money laundering. Was a pretty big one, because very little money laundering is actually done with crypto. It was like 98% or 97% last time I checked. I mean, it might be different now, but largely almost all money laundering is done with cash. And that's pretty well known to most people. That's why there's laws in Australia that you can't spend more than, I believe, $10,000 in a single transaction with cash, or that's considered illegal. And I think there's even lower cash limits in like the UK and stuff like that too. So yeah, it's pretty obvious. Like that's where most money laundering is happening. And to act like it's crypto, that's the big, bad guy here, is pretty unrealistic. Plus, I mean, a lot of that's going to be squashed down by CBDCs anyways. So I don't see a need for regulation like this. It's very unnecessary. And yeah, CBDCs will do all of what they want to regulate for anyways. So it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, at the end of the day. I mean, you're going to have a tiny percentage of people using stuff like Tornado Cash, etc., but they're clearly setting precedents to scare people away from that anyway. So
yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how that whole thing turns out. The thing about like laws is, if there's like public awareness around laws that are being passed and things like that, I think that they tend to come out more reasonable. I don't mean reasonable, I mean more reasonable. But there's one law which I need to see where it's at, but that would essentially, it's like the anti-TikTok bill in the U.S. is being called that to like ban TikTok or whatever. But
Yes, but it's really about like
you know,
they want more control and access to
it would
your
criminalize
data.
VPN use, for example. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah,
can you
yeah, yeah.
imagine trying to like just not having a VPN in the U.S.? And I think
But then the problem is now everyone's like arguing for China's side. Like, well, that's how they're going to make it look, right? Like all the
yeah,
pro TikTokers are pro China. And it's like, it's such a weird way to do this. And I think a lot of it was because they were able to write bills like the one that was, I forget exactly what it was, but it was like the $1 trillion thing that they signed like a few
mm-hmm.
months ago or whatever. That was like 4,000 pages, and they had 2 days to read it. So there was no way that they could have read even more than like a few hundred pages or whatever.
Of course,
This is where AI will actually hold people more accountable, because now you can say you can use the AI, summarize the entire thing, tell me the most egregious things that they're going to do in this bill, and then you could just read it all and have it all summarized instantly. And the people actually reading and voting on the bill could do the same thing. So now they're not going to be able to hide behind, oh, well, we only had 2 days to read this thing, so we didn't even know what was in it. Although they'll never admit that. But like now you can actually be like, okay, well, you could read the majority of it in a summarized form, and you could have it pick out anything that seems to be odd or that is noteworthy, and AI could do all that in 2 seconds, and you could just read the summarized version. So there's going to be a lot more accountability, I would hope, on politicians and lawmakers for these kinds of things going into the future.
yeah, that's the kind of thing that like. I don't. I wouldn't say I trust Elon Musk, but I generally know that he's kind of very transparent in the way he acts. Like like there's not a lot of hidden agendas. He's very public about the agenda. That being said, I don't really his
But
whole
he does play both sides. I mean, he's on
yeah.
all the Chinese apps, he's on all their stuff saying how great it all is. So it's like that's the only thing you don't really see that side of him on our socials.
Yeah. So the thing is, as far as like his proposed like temporary AI ban. First of all, I think a lot of that is just because he wants his own AI company to catch up. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
pretty sure there's a lot of that too. Let's be honest. But also, just I understand that there's some real challenges with the way AI is going. Which, like for example, if AI could start to self-direct a little bit, to start to have its own agenda and start like replicating and going like this could be a runaway train that ends up really hurting a lot of things. I do think the people developing it are putting in some kinds of safeguards against that. I mean, I think that his whole discussion idea on it is very reasonable, but the whole stop development of AI or restrict it with legislations, like that's insane to me. I mean, just think about like the
It's
house.
also impossible because you could just move to another country,
Mm-hmm.
like it. I think it's just like how Italy banned ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense in theory to be like, this could be very problematic. Let's slow this down or stop this. And you can't even VPN it because ChatGPT is like working with them to stop people from VPNing in, which is kind of crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
what that says to me is, okay, that's a good initiative, but if Italy's the only country in the world that bans ChatGPT, then Italy is going to have all of their social media marketers out of a job in the next few months, and all of their graphic designers and everyone who could be replaced by ChatGPT is going to be replaced in Italy or fired or lose their job. And when they're severely behind the rest of the world, they're going to unban ChatGPT. So like unless every single country did it, or there's a million other AIs that do the exact same thing now, so it's not even really that novel to just ban ChatGPT. It just seems crazy to me, like because they're just stifling their own productivity and how much they're able to actually accomplish. Um, the last time I was on, we were talking about how Microsoft fired their entire AI ethics team because they said slow down. So like there is a legitimate reason to want to slow down AI. Your ethics team is saying so. They're firing them because they're saying to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of scary, but it's like with Google, Elon, every tech superpower all competing for the best AI. It's like yeah, it's gonna get crazy for the race to
Mm-hmm.
an AI general intelligence
Yeah,
that
of
they're all like
course.
kind of racing towards, right? And to like what you said, like, is it a runaway train? I'm more worried about like a basic AI prompt that like has access to the internet, because apparently they've tried this where they gave ChatGPT money and access to the internet, and they were like, see what you can do, like try and make money and stuff like that. And you know how we talked about this last time too, where they tricked someone into answering a captcha for them on like a gig site, because they couldn't complete the robot, you know,
Mm-hmm.
verification caption, so they just paid a human to do it. And it's like, yeah, it could just be a runaway of like text prompts, like back to back to
Mm-hmm.
back to back to back. It doesn't even have to be like a sentient AI that's trying to take over the world. It could literally just be an unstoppable chain of prompts back to back to back that are, you know, looping over that cause the problem. You know, it could be as simple as that. Or if you've heard about Agent GPT, which just
Mm.
came out like a month ago, which is now repromptable chat GPT that can prompt itself to complete tasks for you.
Yeah.
So you connect that to your API. I've tried this. And then you give it a general task, and then it'll keep reprompting itself and doing all the prompts and continuing to follow this chain of commands until it believes it's completed the task. And only when it believes it's completed the task. It'll just keep running infinitely until you tell it that it has, or that it thinks it's completed the task. So I can see a ton of problems there too.
Yeah. Can you imagine it'd be like solve world hunger, go, and it just
Yeah.
starts going, and it's just like not
Yeah.
figuring it out. It hits an impasse, and then finally, like the one solution, it's just like, well, what if we eliminated all the hungry people? And then it starts
Yeah.
to pay
Or like,
someone to
or
go
like, you
out.
know, or like the classic example of
Mhm.
misaligned objectives. It's like, I want to grow potatoes.
Mhm.
So the AI says, all right, we have to kill all the humans, destroy all the property, just like re-till the earth, bring everything back to nature, and then just
Everything
plant
will be
potatoes across the whole
potatoes.
globe. Yeah, exactly. Like, we need to remove all the people living here for more room for potatoes so we can achieve our goal of infinite
Hmm.
potatoes.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, that's obviously the more crazy place this kind of stuff could go. But in the meantime, at this level of AI, where you can do just like basic GPT stuff and Midjourney and all that kind of stuff, it's incredibly democratizing. Like you mentioned, like you have congressional staff that are paid a lot of money, a lot of them. I mean, they're not paid a lot of money, but a lot of them together, right? All crafting the kind of
Yeah.
bills. And then a lot of times when you try to get something done at like the citizen level, you have no idea how to craft legislation. So you have to work with like a legislative services department or some other things, and you have to know to do that. And a lot of times there are like advocacy groups that make model legislation. They're basically like, look, this is this is what we're looking for this desired outcome. If you want to try it in your jurisdiction, take this model, this template, change a few things, and then you're good to go. But if you don't have that, if it's a new cutting edge thing, then it's always like the wealthy that get it to the head of the pack. But if you
Yeah.
have an AI, it can just say, "Can you write a bill for this the the province of Quebec that does this and that and restricts that and bans this and go."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden anyone with an idea can kind of do that. And then you get to like super well produced like podcast hosts and stuff where they have like a staff to like transcribe and put it in their on their website, and then they have like some expert like thumbnail editors who like create that and like optimize, and like now you can just be like, Midjourney, make me a thumbnail, and you can do like optimize my YouTube transcript, put
You,
it out,
I'll take
and
it a
then
step further.
yeah.
You can upload audio of your voice,
Mm-hmm.
get the bill drawn up, and then have an audio version of you, fake podcast, create you reading through your own bill that isn't really you. It's just the audio version of yourself that the AI has created. That's
Yeah.
Otter AI, by the or no, sorry, that's 11 Labs.
Mm.
They can take 5 minutes of audio and create very, very accurate recreation of your voice. And then you can have it say anything. So you could just plop in the bill there and have it read through. And then there you go. There's a podcast. You didn't even actually say anything. And that is like a glimpse into like literally 1 to 2 years from now. You won't even make content anymore. You will have an AI make content in your likeness, and it'll just be like you signing over your IP to the AI to create content for you in what you would have said, or you would type in your thoughts, and then a video would just pop up of you talking about said thing, and you could just review it and make sure it's accurate enough. And it's like, it'll be edited too. It'll have all the jump cuts. Like, it's crazy. Like, we're so close to that already, because I've already tested it out and it sounds exactly like me, which is kind of scary. But it's like, yeah, you could already do a lot of this stuff. Another tool that you could use to achieve this is called Gen 1. It's like the first video to video AI, where you can take a video and then change it into a different video visually and do a bunch of different things. It's very, very interesting. I haven't really had a lot of chance to play with it, but we're like so close to this already, where it's like content creators won't even exist in 5 years. It'll just be, you have an AI that creates on your behalf. Like, we're very, very close to that.
Yeah, and I just wonder at that point, who's the market going to select for? As far as, is it just going to be all big picture thinkers that just then can say like, well, I think we should have a podcast on this, and I'm just going to create it? Or is it just going to be, if you're the number one like podcast, you have like 800 podcasts that you don't really produce, but you pretend to produce and stuff, are you then going to just like sell like one-on-one IRL time chatting with people, and people will like, oh my gosh, that's just so,
you're just
it's
exclusive.
It's so exclusive. Yeah. It's like real. It's not AI. Oh, like I can see the gray hairs. He actually has gray hairs on this one. Like,
yeah. And I mean, think about how far this could go too. The guy who does voiceovers just got replaced. Dwayne Johnson doesn't have to do movies anymore. He could just be like, all right, I would be $10 million if I did the movie, or you can pay me $5 million for the rights to my AI for the movie. That sounds a lot easier, right?
You can stop doing steroids.
That's what it's. Yeah, well, that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be you just sign over the rights for this ad or this thing, and I mean, they actually basically, that was the premise of the movie Space Jam 2. That LeBron signed over was asked to sign over his digital rights to the AI algorithm, and then he said no or whatever, and AI wanted to use his likeness to create animated series, and he said no, I won't do that. But that's absolutely the future. Like, that is exactly what will play out, where you'll just, NBA players, they will sign for commercials. It'll be part of their contract. AI has to require your AI likeness to be used in commercials and da-da-da-da. So you can focus still on playing basketball, but we get our ad money. And then they don't even have the choice to say, oh, I won't support this thing. I won't be part of this ad. It's like, okay, well, we already did it and it's in your contract, so it's already done. Like, it's going to be very, very dodgy as to like what people actually support or what they're actually okay with, or and everyone's going to be just caught up in their contracts with their AI, signing over their AI rights or whatever, whether it's podcasting, video.
And they're going to use AIs to scour the internet for unlicensed usage of their likenesses. And it's just going to be constant back and forth. The AI wars are upon us.
So have you seen the Snapchat AI?
No, I've heard about it though.
So I've been saying, based on this Snapchat AI, which is basically like you can chat with it, but it's more so for like managing your conversations with people. So it's like someone messages you and your Snapchat AI can like auto respond for you. So in the future, every single, like, obviously Twitter is going to do this next. I guarantee Twitter is going to release an AI. Every single social platform will have an AI subscription platform, because it's a great way for them to make money. It's like $30 a month for Snapchat. That's crazy. So they're going to do that for every platform. And everyone is not even going to interact with humans anymore. It's going to be my AI talking to your AI. And then at the end of it, it'll be like, all right, you guys are going to hang out on this day. This is the time I set for you both based on your calendars. You won't even be making your own like schedules anymore. It'll be like, you have a date this day, you have a podcast at this time, and I worked all this out for you with the other person's AI. And we just looked at your calendars and set the things. And you won't even be interacting with people anymore. You'll just be interacting with your own AI that goes out and interacts with other people's AI on your behalf.
See, that's why we need something like Neuralink, because at some point you and a person are going to have like a rich history between each other that you have no
Yeah,
recollection of
and you won't
'cause
even know anything
you
about
didn't
it.
do
Like
it.
every inside joke, like
Yeah, now you're like,
crazy.
okay, look, and like I need to be briefed on this. I can't just read a brief and figure
Yeah,
out my relationship with this person. I have to have it plugged in there. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is the
yeah.
times
It's
we
like I need
shared
to be
together.
briefed on the last like year's worth of this like relationship that I've been automating away, and it's like that's gonna be so crazy. I think I was watching Joe Rogan and he made a joke about this where it's like, hey, is that your AI messaging me? Is this really you? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, baby. Like I was busy doing this thing. Like I promise I won't use my AI with you again. It's like, yeah, like that wasn't you, that was your AI. And it's like that's gonna be the future where like people are gonna be like, ah, like I can't deal with this right now. Let the AI go and do it. And it's gonna be very interesting.
It definitely is. It's it's going to be interesting what the market selects for, like what anything that only humans can do or a specific human can do is going to get selected for. It'll be scarce and super valuable up until,
Mm.
maybe the eventual when there's just nothing that people can do. That's like when at that point that's going to be, or when humans stop making the economic decisions, when it's just like, well, humans might value human to human contact, but the AI doesn't, and the AI runs shit. So sorry, like no
Mm.
one cares to see you playing your guitar in real life there because
Yeah.
we'll see. Let's hit on this last story real quick because yeah, it's kind of interesting as far as like context of where things are going. 46% of millennials across major economies own crypto. BitGet research study featured over 255,000 respondents across 26 countries in 4 age groups, but millennials. So millennials are starting to become the old people. Not really the old people, but they're like the middle of society now.
Yeah.
They're in half of them own crypto already. The other half will probably within 5 to 10 years, in my opinion. As far as like Gen Z, I don't. As far as Gen Z and younger who own anything, I'm sure it's like almost universal. Is at some point, like all you have to do is just hang on until the next generation kind of expires. And it's not like I'm hoping people pass away, but people do pass away or they pass on from like influence. And so this whole like crypto thing, like I'm kind of in favor of fighting off every kind of regulation possible as long as it's possible because time will just solve itself. Eventually people who are actually in the world of crypto will actually be in a better spot to figure out what regulations should or shouldn't apply.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think you're right. Like it's just a matter of time, and as people get crypto for free, airdrops, all these different things, there's going to be ways for everyone to own crypto one way or another, whether you're actually, taking the risk and going out and investing in it, or you're getting it gifted to you for your birthday. Like that's going to be a thing. Whenever my friends have kids, I give them like $100 a dash, and I say like, put this away, hold on to this, and don't forget the seed phrase. But yeah, I mean, like that's gonna be a thing. Like people, it's way easier to give someone some crypto as like a investment in the future or something rather than like giving them just like $50 or whatever. The same way that back in the day people would like start a bank account for their kids so that on their birthday relatives could give them money and stuff, but then people don't trust the banks. They'll do the exact same thing with crypto wallets. There's going to be all these ways that people are going to get crypto, whether or not they intend to actually invest in it. I think it's just gonna keep going up, and I'm very confident in the crypto future. Like people are gonna not like CBDCs. There's already tons of people who are not in favor of it. Even Robert Kennedy Jr., I believe his name is, who's going up against Biden, is extremely anti CBDC. So, I'm very hopeful for a future where everyone's owning crypto, and we're kind of skirting the CBDC oncoming crisis. And originally, I was of the mind that CBDCs would be really good in the short term because it would just boost so much adoption. And now I'm kind of just like, it won't even be worth it
No.
I just want to stay away from it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's like stablecoin adoption is kind of more what maybe you were previously thinking of about CBDC adoption, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting to that point where, and it is kind of a so like I've been involved, I mean, in my crypto life, maybe the last 10 years, not quite as much, but the whole rest of my life, I've been heavily involved in like the political scene, whether it's like more directly or it's in like policy making and like scholarly research, that kind of stuff. And one thing that's become very clear to me over time is the way of affecting change. It's like there's a lot of like on the ground, like there's a lot of stuff you can do in the explicitly political process, but the thing that the thing that makes something untouchable is just make something. If you want something to succeed, make it big, make it like just like do the Uber strategy. Just get it out there as much as you can, as many people who are going to be pissed off if someone tries to regulate it, and then you win. That's kind of like the most fail safe. Of course, you can always be like, well, let's pass certain legislation or advocate for this or do this stuff to like incrementally move it here or do this, or we change the world by doing this. But like that's all, there's a lot of work involved with that, and there's a lot of like, you know, risk and nuance and all this. What really works is just get there. And so as far as crypto, it's like, well, we need to hire a lobbyist army. We need to, you know, figure out this. We need to start. Yeah, sure. But the biggest thing is just everyone has to have crypto. Everyone has to use crypto. Everyone has to. And then eventually they're just going to be like, I don't want to stop doing the thing that I've been doing. That's part of my reason why maybe this might get me really bit in the ass if the whole thing gets, you know, that awful bill I was talking about gets passed. But I don't think that VPNs are going to be criminalized in the U.S. I just don't, because like Joe Rogan's shilling NordVPN or whatever, like all these big, like every YouTuber has some sort of VPN shill going on. Everyone is like, and you can't just like, oh, do you want to watch like French Netflix and stuff? Get this VPN and point it out. Like everyone's talking about that kind of stuff. It's all over the place. And you're just going to tell all those people that are super invested in it, guess what? You're a criminal now? Like, no, I don't think so. But maybe I'm being optimistic.
No, I mean, even Brave, I think, has like a built-in VPN now. So like it's becoming so commonplace. And so many people are going to understand it and know how to use it that it'll be kind of like what you were saying. If there's too many people that'll be affected by it, it'll cause too much commotion. Where they could get around that is by coming out with an anti-TikTok bill that secretly bans VPNs is how they would get around that. But that's just, I guess, a thing of public awareness, right?
Yeah, and they are doing it. But I think that if it gets passed and then VPNs get criminalized and people will freak out, and I think that they'll do something to push back against it, and then maybe half the bill gets rolled back or something. I don't know. Maybe that's my pessimistic kind of prediction. My optimistic prediction is obviously that doesn't go anywhere. Just like Elizabeth Warren's stupid ass bill, and yeah, crypto's here to stay. The U.S. I think is going to lag behind in crypto for the next 5 bumpy years, but after that, everything's inevitable, I think. And yes, the end of the human race is also inevitable with AI. Not necessarily, but
because we will transcend and become AI and become like cyborgs.
Yeah. Well, anyway, any parting thoughts? It's shill-o'clock. What do you want to show?
Just you can check out my stuff at scottcbusiness.com. Eventually I'm going to come back, and I think I might not be trying to keep up with my usual like trying to do videos all the time. I might just like release videos like once every 2 weeks or once a month or something, but it'll just be like more meticulously researched stuff that I've been working on for a while, like, you know, comparing Bitcoin to legacy energy systems or looking at money laundering and stuff like that. So I want to just do more in-depth takes on things and not try to keep up with like the news cycle as much. So that's probably going to be my shift in the next over the next year. I want to just get back into things, but
monthly might be
focus
nice.
on like, yeah,
you know, like once a month, like a good 20-30 minute breakdown type video that's very well researched every once a month. That seems like a good schedule, because that's kind of what I do with my like non-interview type things. I do like I did one thing about Bitcoin's ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And I try to do like one of those a month and then a couple of interviews, and then the rest is just live shows. And I probably put out too much content, but whatever. It keeps me.
Yeah, you can never have too much. Also, 1 year left until the next Bitcoin block halving.
Yeah, and let's see if the price doubles there, because if not, then we're gonna start to
fingers
have
crossed.
the security going wee down,
Yeah.
and then we'll see how that works. All right, thanks everyone for watching. This has been a great time. Thanks very much for being on, Scott. Right next is the Dash podcast, and Marina is coming on. That's gonna be a fun one. And then I guess I'll see you guys either in like a couple minutes or next week. Thanks, guys. Use AI before it uses you. Get on it. All right. Peace. Bye-bye.